All right, so hi everyone watching the recording. My name is Ria. I am calling in from Massachusett, Pawtucket Land, colonized as Boston. And this is the first Embodied Reflections class. Today, the theme we're talking about is releasing resistance and barriers to stillness or practice. So today, for our first little journal prompt to kick us off, I want to introduce a few lines from the Yoga Sutra. So I'm going to drop in the chat a link to a PDF if people are curious to open it up on your own. But I'm just going to read aloud a few of the lines, and I invite you to take out your journal. If you don't want to write in a journal, you prefer some sort of artistic expression or anything else, feel free to take that out. So what we're going to reflect on today is beginning with Sutra 1.31. So this says, sickness, apathy, doubt, carelessness, laziness, hedonism, delusion, lack of progress, and inconstancy are all distractions, which by stirring up consciousness act as barriers to stillness. The next sutra says, when they do, one may experience distress, depression, or the inability to maintain steadiness of posture or breathing. One can subdue these distractions by working with any one of the following principles of practice. Consciousness settles as one radiates friendliness, compassion, delight, and equanimity toward all things, whether pleasant or painful, good or bad, or by pausing after breath flows in or out, or by steadily observing as new sensations materialize. So these lines basically talking about some of the barriers to practice, which to you, this could mean literally barriers to your yoga practice. It could mean a barrier to carving out time for yourself in whatever way that makes sense to you. So I'll invite us to take a few minutes here to just journal about, in this moment, what does this mean to you? What comes to mind with regards to the barriers to your practice? As an example, if people are having trouble, I just had COVID, something COVID-ish, and I'm feeling very tired and very reluctant and hesitant to get back into my routine and my practice. And that was mentioned in the line that talked about sickness. So I'll leave some space for you to write some thoughts down, about 3 to 4 minutes. And if you have any questions or want to chime in, feel free to unmute or speak up in the chat. Take about 1 more minute here. Wrapping up your thought. And over the next minute or so, I'm going to invite you to find a kneeling position in Vajrasana. You can kneel on a cushion or blankets or pillows, just taking a minute to transition into the asana portion of our time together, with the reminder that there's no pressure to engage in any of the postures that I offer. Whenever you find your way to a comfortable kneeling position, I invite you to roll your shoulders up, back, and down, closing or softening your eyes, whatever feels comfortable for you. Placing one hand on your chest, the other on your low belly below your navel. Starting by just noticing your breath. Noticing how the breath lands under each hand. The quality of your breath, the texture, temperature. And we'll do a brief pranayam together known as Viloma 1, which will involve taking the inhale in thirds. So I'll talk us through it together. Before we begin, just take a long inhale through the nose, and then big sigh, let it out your mouth. Nice. Take a third of the breath into your belly and pause. Take the second third into the mid ribs and pause. Take the final third up in the chest and collarbones, pause at the top, and then big exhale, release all the breath, pausing when you're empty. Repeating at your own pace, take a third of the inhale into the belly and pause. Second third into the mid ribs, pause. Final third up in the chest, collarbone, pause. And then release, slowly take your time, let yourself be empty, pausing at the bottom. Again, on your own time, inhale into the belly, pause. Inhale into the mid ribs, pause. Take the last third of breath up into the chest, collarbones, pause. Big exhale, release every part of the breath. Feel the sensation of emptying out. Couple more rounds on your own. After your next round is complete, just let yourself take a deep, slow, full breath, noticing if anything's shifted, how things feel. Whenever you're ready, I invite you to join me in a tabletop position, so hands and knees. Taking a moment to set up so that your wrists are underneath your shoulders, knees underneath your hips. Starting with a long neutral spine. Few rounds of cat and cow. On the inhale, drop your belly, pull your shoulders back and chest up as you gaze forward. Long exhale, round your thighs, look down. Reversing again, inhale, looking up for cow. And on the exhale, take your time, coming down, reversing for cat. Letting the pace be dictated by your breathing here, so that when you're about halfway through each breath, inhale or exhale, you're passing through that neutral position. Instead of your movement dictating the breath, let it be the other way around. Good, take one more full round just like that, letting yourself take your time. Return back to neutral when you're ready. On an inhale, raise your right arm up towards the ceiling. And as you exhale, thread the needle, send the right hand underneath your left armpit as you bring your shoulder down towards the ground. You can always rest your head or your shoulder on a block or a pillow. Taking a few deep breaths there, just noticing whatever is present, what sensations are evoked here. Noticing if there's any subconscious tension as you're holding the pose, and see if you can soften with your next exhale. Take one more breath in. As you exhale, unwind, come back to tabletop position. Same thing, other side when you're ready. Inhale, left arm comes up. Exhale, threading the needle. Take your time as you come down. Noticing how this side may feel similar or different. Noticing if you can soften in any way on your next exhale. Maybe you stay still, maybe you gently crawl your left fingertips forward any amount. Experiment with where your right arm is in space. Listening to your body's cues on whether something more dynamic or something more still makes sense. Take one more breath in through the nose. And then exhale, come back to tabletop. Stacking your wrists again, under the shoulders, knees under the hips. Walk the hands about a palm's distance forward. Step back into a high plank position. And then on an exhale, taking downward facing dog. Or to modify, you can always stick to tabletop position. If you are in downward facing dog, I invite you to draw your thighs back in space and then gently draw your chest back towards your thighs so that your hips go a little bit higher up in space. You can bend your knees as much as you like, maybe pedaling out your feet. Pulling your heart a little bit further back in space, gently. And seeing if you can feel your limbs lengthen any amount. Being here for a couple more breaths. And tap your knees down to the mat. We'll take child's pose. Knees can be wide. Big toes touch as your hips sink back. And your forehead can come down to a pillow, block, or a floor as your hands stretch out. Feel free to walk your hands out and have them be elongated, or rest your arms closer by your side. And here I'll invite you to take some deep breaths into the back body, drawing your attention to the fabric on your back, particularly in between your shoulder blades. Imagining if that point had a mouth or nostrils and could breathe in, taking a nice full breath into that mid-upper back. And then with an exhale, releasing some of what might be stored there. Taking a couple more breaths just like that. If your hands are not outstretched, I invite you to straighten your arms any amount, and then slowly walk both arms over to the upper right corner of your space. So there's a gentle stretch or sensation in the left side body here. Now focusing on moving that breath instead of that mid-upper back closer to wherever you feel sensation here. Letting yourself grow any amount heavier towards the floor. Walking your hands back to the center, taking a breath there for the moment. And then if you're ready, you can go to the other side, this time walking the fingertips over to the left. Maybe creating a new sensation in the opposite side body. Again, noticing this might feel similar, it might feel different from the previous side. But wherever we feel this new sensation, directing our breath, directing our awareness there, which might be something different, somewhere different for each of us. Taking a couple more breaths here. Walking back to center when you feel complete. Taking one more big breath here, again in that mid upper back, letting your whole back body fill with breath. A big exhale out the mouth. And we'll gently press ourselves back up to a tabletop position. We'll step our right foot forward, coming into a low lunge position, and just begin with a few gentle rocks, just gently moving your hips forward in space, keeping your foot planted. Maybe you move forward on the exhale, gently move back on the inhale. Feeling the ground firmly planted underneath your foot. Gently make your way up. You can place your hands on your right thigh or on blocks, whatever feels suitable for you. And just take a couple breaths here, wherever you may be, rolling your shoulders back so that your chest is pulled forward instead of more down. On an inhale, sweep your arms up overhead, reaching tall. On an exhale, bring the palms together down towards the heart. Big breath in. And on the exhale, twist to the right any amount, maybe hooking the left elbow or maybe not. Taking a few breaths wherever you are, turning your chest up, your heart up towards the ceiling. One more inhale here. And on an exhale, unwind, come back, frame your foot, hands on blocks or the floor. Again, doing a few of those rocks, shifting your hips forward in space. Now we'll tuck our back toe and lift our back leg up, coming into a halfway lifted pyramid pose. So you may have to adjust your feet. I'm going to make my feet a little bit wider. And both my feet are pointing generally forward. Back foot is at a 45-degree angle. And then lengthen your spine as much as you can so that instead of rounding down, your heart is pulling forward. Noticing any sensation in your lower body. And squaring your hips forward. Take a breath in. And on the exhale, fold any amount over the front leg. Noticing how whatever motion you choose to take here shifts the sensations you may be feeling. Releasing any tension in your neck. Focusing on letting the upper body release as your lower body holds yourself here in the pose. Take one more inhale. And on your exhale, you can bend the front leg, place your back knee down, and we'll return to our low lunge position. Bring both hands to the inside of the front foot and toe heel your right foot out any amount. And we'll take lizard pose here. So there are many variations of this. You can stay here, or you can start to lower your hands down, put your forearms on something, maybe even come to the outer edge of this right foot so that your knee turns outward. Finding a place to land where you can take a few breaths with sensation, but also a sense of some ease. Identifying, noticing the spots where you feel sensation, directing your inhale there, and then after your exhale, letting there be an imperceptible pause so that we're empty even for just a small moment before inhaling again. When you feel complete here, you can toe heel your foot back, turning the foot once more, returning through our low lunge position, and then shift this leg back and we'll come to tabletop. Just for a moment here, taking a couple breaths, noticing how left side of the body feels in comparison to the right. And then we'll shift our attention now to the other side. So when you're ready, stepping the left foot forward here. And like we did previously, a few gentle rocks forward with the hips. Again, taking the time to ground some stability under your foot and under your back shin. When you're ready, coming more upright, hands either on your thigh or on blocks, rolling your shoulders back and pulling your chest forward and upward. On an inhale, take your time as you breathe and then lift your arms up to the sky. Palms together, exhale, draw your hands down to your heart. One more big breath in. And then on your exhale, turn, twist in the opposite direction. You can hook the right elbow or stay in the twist. Wherever you are, keeping your chest turning with each exhale, so that with time, you're not gradually falling out of the posture, but using your concentration to stay where you are. Taking a couple more breaths here, letting your breath be as full as you can. And then unwind, come back to center, our low lunge position. Tucking the back toe, lifting the back leg, and finding our halfway lifted pyramid pose here. Maybe widen out your feet, maybe change the distance between your feet, but just trying to square your hips to the front as much as possible so that you're not sticking out to the left or to the right. Both feet are pointing generally forward, shoulders back, chest pulling forward. You can have your fingers be as raised as you need in order for your spine to be long. Take a breath in. Exhale, fold any amount. As you fold, noticing what sensation changes, what the act of folding does there. Noticing what parts of your body might be awakened in the shape. Directing your attention there, noticing what there is to be noticed. And again, introducing that gentle, if momentary pause after your exhale. So we have a full and deep inhale and a complete exhale before beginning again. One more breath in. And on your exhale, bend the front leg, drop the back knee down. We return to our low lunge. And we'll take lizard pose on this side. So left hand can come to the inside of the foot as you toe heel the foot out and take whatever variation speaks to you. You can go to the outside edge of the left foot. You can bring your forearms down or stay more upright. Taking a couple more long breaths here, maybe exhaling out the mouth. When you're ready, gently making your way back to tabletop position. You can shift your blocks out of the way. I'll invite you to step back to either a high or low plank pose. Your knees can be up or down. Take an inhale, and then on your exhale, just gently make your way down to your belly. We'll come to Sphinx pose here, so you can plant your forearms on the mat. Place the tops of your feet down firmly, and then pull with your hands so that your chest comes forward, your shoulders pull back, and your gaze comes up towards the sky. Maybe coming back to that back body breath here for another breath. And then release. You can stack your palms on top of one another. Place your forehead down on your hands. I'll invite you to rest in crocodile pose, or if you prefer a traditional shavasana, you can roll over in whatever way feels conducive for you. Whatever posture you may find yourself in, I invite you to notice any and all sensation that may be present in your system. As you release control of the breath, just letting it be effortless and letting the parts of your body that are making contact with the earth just get a little heavier. Drawing our attention away from the gross external shapes to the internal, subtler motions within our bodies. I invite you to deepen your breath here, staying in whatever shape you may be in. Simply being present with whatever may have shown up somatically, physically, or subtly. And over the next minute or so, I'll invite you to gently and gradually make your way out of your Shavasana, knowing that if you need more time, that's also always fine. If you're making your way up, go slow, take your time. And then as you're ready, I'll invite you to return to your journal. And we'll have a bit more time now, about 8 minutes, to reflect on how this prompt may sit with you in light of our practice together. If anything felt like it shifted during our practice, if you learned anything. If there was some sort of somatic or visceral interpretation. And we'll have an opportunity to share at the end, but otherwise take some space, get some water. Remembering that the link to the sutras is in the chat if you want to revisit those lines. If you want to ask a question, you can always chat. About 2-3 more minutes. Another minute to wrap up your thoughts. All right, and in the last few minutes, I'd love to hear from anyone who feels comfortable sharing. It could be something you journaled on, something that the text evoked for you, or anything else that you would like to share with the community. So if anyone would like to, feel free to unmute. You can always type in the chat as well.
Hi, friends. Thank you, Ria. That was a really beautiful and like needed practice. Something that came up for me that is a concept that I've been kind of chewing on, but I really felt it and experienced it in our practice was the idea of not waiting for motivation to take action, instead taking the action first and then allowing the motivation to follow. And I definitely felt that, like I was feeling a little bit of that resistance that I mentioned at the beginning of practice of just like coming back to the community, coming back to consistent practice and even just movement in this way was feeling like a little bit tight and like um, a little bit like I was definitely feeling the resistance to it. And then as soon as we started moving, and even towards the beginning of practice, I was like fidgeting and I was having a hard time getting myself comfortable and I was just kind of adjusting constantly. But then towards the end, it just felt things were flowing and I felt that motivation to continue and the motivation to come back and continue practicing. So that was like a really just a good reminder of the power of just like taking the action first.
Thank you for sharing that. That's beautiful, and it's easier said than done, of course, but it's a cool thing to sort of experience in your body, and appreciate you sharing that with us. Anyone else want to share? Lots of writing going on, so there's good ideas stewing.
I can share a little bit. Before the practice, I was thinking about the words that stuck with me from the sutra translation. And just this idea around friendship and pausing for breath and letting consciousness settle. And it just showed up for me that it's a balance, even though the word balance wasn't used at all, around going inward and being outward facing. And so experiencing what is going inward, this pausing, noticing the breath, right? What is being outward facing, this friendship, this like practice with others. And then being in practice felt so like consuming. It wasn't any longer a contemplation on the sutra. It was just being here for that moment of that practice. And I think what's sitting with me is this, what Catherine said was really, really fascinating to me about motivation and, what are we waiting for sometimes? Like, what are we allowing to put us into a pause and see as obstacles? And then I just kept sitting with this thought, like, what is practice? Like, is what is practice? Whatever is there is the practice, instead of entering into a practice or needing to be guided through something to say I practiced. Like, isn't what is the practice? So just sitting with that and then repeating in my notes this thought to just be here for it and to just let it be here, which in a way is this idea of releasing resistance to another idea of what it is, and then letting it be. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah. Something about your reflection stood out to me, which was that we can talk and analyze and intellectualize what the translation and what the words mean, but it's something different to experience it in an embodied way. And I think for me, that's what makes practice so amazing. It's like, wait, we can't intellectualize this. Huh. Um, Anyone else want to share?
I think something that was sticking out to me was like the role of the breath. Um, and like how the sutra was saying that certain bad things in the world or ideas get realized physically. And I was like, wow, I've not done asana like this in such a long time. There's so much tension. And yeah, I guess like the word prana has been on my mind a lot. And so thinking about that with the breath and using the breath to guide you and basically yeah, having your breath guide what you're doing, and kind of like that helps you like loosen all of these like knots either in your body or in what you're feeling.
Yeah, thank you. It's so interesting. It's like these very old texts talking about how your inner state can be revealed by like just observing the texture, the nature of your breath. It's like a sort of universal condition. And operating from like the inside out to manage our state is a pretty interesting concept in today's society, I think. Anyone who hasn't shared want to say anything? We have time for everyone to share if you would like, but also no pressure.
I can say something. I don't know. I feel like my my mind's still going everywhere, so I'm still trying to like process what I'm writing and stuff. But I do want to say that like the practice today just felt like what I needed. And what's coming up in my head was like just that yeah, I mean, like Tejal bringing up the like, what is practice? It's got me thinking too of just like, sometimes there's certain like practices that aren't what I need in those moments, um, and to just, I don't know, respect that in myself, I guess. I don't know. So yeah, I don't know. Today was just, it felt right. It felt good. And I felt like I was flowing, and um there wasn't as much resistance as I normally would get sometimes in like doing asana sometimes. So yeah, thank you so much, Ria. It was really, really nice.
Thanks for sharing that. That's great. And I think also it's a hallmark of you listening to yourself and like what you need in that moment instead of, like, oh, I have to do this because someone's telling me to, and then that might feel not as great. I'll leave space for anything else if anyone wants to share in our last couple minutes. Okay, so I think we can wrap up. I hope that it's nice to not feel as alone in like having resistance, because I certainly have been feeling a lot of resistance, and it is nice to like feel solidarity because you're not the only one, and social media can make it seem otherwise sometimes. But I'm really happy to be in community with all of you and appreciate the time that you took on a weeknight to practice and to be here and try something new with someone you may or may not know. So thank you for joining. Please reach out to me if you have questions, feedback. Obviously, it's like the very first class, so I would love any feedback or suggestions that you may have. And hope to see you next week. But otherwise, take care and have a good week.